Hi and welcome back to Geek Unplugged. Today we're having a look at the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3. This was an instinct purchase, I'm afraid to say. I just saw one being used in the Vodafone store here in the Canary Islands, and they happened to mention they only had one other one on the whole island. So, yep, this ended up in my pocket. It's an impressive thing. The whole point of the Z Flip 3, of course, is the clever use of screens. You've got this little outside one here, you can see the weather, you can check your notifications and your emails, and actually you can take photographs with this. I will show you that a little bit later, but the big magic, it's got a foldable screen. Instantly you're seeing that crease in the screen there. Don't worry, that just really doesn't impact life at all when you're using it. It actually feels pretty good on the camera. But when you're browsing, yep, that crease disappears and you have a perfectly functional, if very large, 6.7-inch mobile phone. The screen on this is incredibly impressive. It's capable of 120 megahertz. It's AMOLED, it's bright, the colors are astonishing. Yeah, it's an impressive piece of hardware. I think all of the flagships now running Android, you're not going to go wrong with whether or not you can browse the internet. Your apps are going to run smoothly, and this one is absolutely the same as that. However, I do have some complaints. In order to make the battery last long enough on this thing for all day, you really do have to minimize that refresh rate. You really have to turn off some of the gestures. You're going to go into standard motion smoothness, otherwise you're going to find yourself recharging this 2, maybe 3 times a day, and that's okay if you are someone who commutes to an office and happens to have a charger on their desk. But if, like me, you're pottering around all day at home, it can be a bit of a pain. It's the same with the outside screen. It's capable of a lot of stuff, but I've got mine on tap to show rather than always on because of that battery life. It's a 3300 battery, and that just isn't big enough for this kind of technology. The Flip, yes, it's strong, it's secure, it's 80% more durable than the last generation. I don't fear opening and closing this. They say you can do it 200,000 times. I'm sure I'll give up on that phone before we get anywhere near the number, but I still want a case. This is a valuable phone. Trouble with these cases is the form factor. They have to clip on the top here, and you have to clip the bottom one on the bottom there. You can see I have one with a nice little finger grip. I just find it useful with a device of this size. But you find yourself pushing them on, clipping them into place. That's obviously an issue. The phones, they say they are much stronger, but you are looking at a very expensive device, although less expensive than foldable phones used to be, so you're going to want a case. I've already dropped mine twice. They're pretty heavy in the hand, so this is worth having. Now, the unlock sensor's pretty good finger-wise. It very rarely recognizes my face, much less than the iPhone did, but it's a very fast startup from finger lock to actually going and browsing and resuming the activity that you had before. But this is an evolving technology. There is something about this phone that doesn't feel right. You see here, I am minimizing the screen in order to actually browse it properly with one hand. And this to me is the fault of the phone. The whole device is supposed to be that it can be compact, but I really can't reach those top corners, and I know a lot of people are going to have pretty average hand sizes like me. When you're reaching a phone size that is 6.7, which is the same as some of the biggest flagships out there now, it does make you wonder what the point of the Flip was. Surely we could have a flip phone that was as compact as the whole design suggested. This little screen, very useful addition. I'd have bought it for that without the Flip technology. But why not, when it opens up completely, can it not still be used with one hand? To me, that is a fault. Some of you will criticize me for that. I mean, obviously the iPhone 13 Pro Max also has a 6.7-inch OLED screen, as does the biggest of the Pixels, but is it enough for me to have this little outside screen to take photos on? Possibly not. I don't know how useful that is for any true photographer, although the website bangs on and on about being able to take selfies with it. In fact, it's really aimed this phone at the selfie generation. That's another problem with the technology here. You're buying a flip phone because it can flip, whereas the camera is not the best on the market. It's perfectly acceptable. I take photos all the time, but unless you're holding it with two hands, in my opinion, you're just not going to be able to get the focus right. Again, why bother with a flip if you end up with something that is a two-hand device? However, yes, these photos are admirable enough, and certainly people who follow my photography have not really noticed the difference between iPhone and Samsung, and that is something to say, although Google Pixel's software processing technology is better than what you're finding at Samsung. I think for me the biggest issue with this phone is simply that it just doesn't feel likable. Browsing, I just instantly want to use Google Photos. You see, the editing within Google Photos is just so much simpler and easier, and I think more capable than it is with what comes directly with Samsung. That isn't a criticism of Samsung, they've tried to go their own way, but there is something about the Google purity on the Pixel range that just appeals so much more, especially things like this, the personal and work profiling. Now, because you are coming with the latest Android experience, this is something that is almost forced upon you. If you have your email provided by the office, for instance, it will kind of force you to use a work profile unless your admin has turned that off. And I'm not the admin. It's not good enough for me to have to force myself to use two browsers, two galleries, etc. It's a long story, but that's not Samsung's fault, I guess. So it flips, but is it nice to look at? In my opinion, no. I mean, this is the black colorway, and you're seeing it with a plain black case, but that's not particularly something I want to admire on my desk. It's something that grabs attention for sure, but I don't know, is that beautiful to me? It just isn't. I guess the other colorways are worth exploring, because this one, the Phantom Black, is the dullest looking of all of them, so let's show you what some of the others have in store for you. So if you don't stick with the black, you can see these alternative colorways. I actually really like the two-tone design of this phone on the outside. It's pretty strong. You're talking about Gorilla Glass and an aluminium area around the hinge. But I think Samsung know that this phone is actually a little unfriendly, which is why they've gone for these pretty cute tones. I know that also with the cases that they're releasing. You're seeing here the one that has a holder over the hinge just to assist you with that hand movement. But wow, there is a Marvel one, so maybe all is not lost. Back to the phone itself, that crease, I think I just want to say about that crease, don't worry about it. It is a technical marvel. I think every time I run my finger across the phone or leave it in whatever position it happens to be left in during everyday use, that crease copes with it. It's actually kind of useful having the phone on the bed or on the desk watching a YouTube video. And, let's face it, when you've got the thing in your hand and you are flipping it open in a V, it's impressive every time. And good technology should be impressive to the hand and, bring you that little piece of joy. But just back to my main point, I just don't think this thing, when closed, is particularly attractive. It looks like it wants to live at NASA, not at Google. So would I buy a Galaxy Z Flip again? Well, I think the story of that comes down to the packaging. When you buy this thing, you get this pretty plain box, you're opening him up, a little bit of plastic, and when you originally received the phone, you're getting it inside another bit of cardboard with a little welcome screen that says, do not do this, do not do that, do not remove that. This is a still somewhat fragile device. That is the world of the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip to me. It's boring. It's dull. What you're receiving is a piece of brilliant technical engineering from a very reputable company. It's certainly powerful enough to do whatever you want, but it doesn't matter if you hold it upside down or the right side up. This thing is boring. It doesn't have any of the allure of the Pixel design. It's not as easy to hold as the Pixel Pro. It's not as powerful as an iPhone. All you're buying here is this foldable hinge, and it annoys me every day that when it's flat on the desk, it looks like a wedge. I think my feelings about this phone are summed up by this case actually that has a little keyring on it. Listen up, all you Android manufacturers out there. I think what the world is calling for is a phone that when it's small, it's really small. It's small because we want to grab it, we want to put it on the nightstand, we want it to be a clock, we want to shove it in our pocket. When it's open, we want to use it with one hand. If we wanted to use two hands, we would go the other way. We would go with the Fold, turning into a true phablet. These things have got to be usable, easy, friendly, and they've got to like us. I really do feel like this phone just doesn't like me. It's better than I am, it's more technically proficient than I am, but it's not friendly. So, just my opinion. Sorry, Samsung. So, agree or don't agree about the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3? Leave a comment, and please subscribe to see more of my honest, hands-on reviews of technology around the home.